My name is Jeremy Walton and this is Hard Lighting in Film. Let's go! Hard light. I know you've heard the term and it can encompass many things, but I want to keep it basic and I wanted to make this video to contrast the video I made earlier about soft lighting, which you should check out first or at least after you watch this video. Just like the soft light video, I want to explore the terminology used for hard lighting or some things you might not have thought of when looking at films that utilize hard light for their style. Hard light is often described as a bright light that casts harsh shadows, and you can find plenty of examples and how-to videos to achieve this look. Although when it comes to film, you might hear some different terminology and different reasons for using hard light. Let's not waste any more time and jump right in. First up on my list is creating the look with hard light. I was running movies through my head and I really wanted to give a good example using hard light that really incorporated it into the look, and that's going to be the 2017 film Darkest Hour, directed by Joe Wright and cinematography by Bruno Delbonnel. If you just watch the trailer, you can see the film lives in the darkest and brightest lighting, and that's not by accident. It was a well thought out and crafted choice by the filmmakers. Now there's two ways they went about creating the look. One way is a lot of scenes were shot with deep focus around T8, and Delbonnel says, "Every piece of glass has some color in it. I wanted the cleanest image possible." That meant no filters or diffusion were used to alter the image. In terms of color, that was pretty straightforward for that time period. It was really brown and black. All those guys were wearing black costumes, black suits, so we didn't change that much. That's really the color palette that we had. At times, it would almost look like a black and white film. That's because, as Delbonnel describes it, it was more about darkness and contrast than color. The film, especially in the war room, feels claustrophobic, but alive with anticipation. Now, a lot of credit has to be given to the actors, but let's not forget how much lighting plays a role. Let's see how Delbonnel sums this up. "I like to let the actors play in and out of the light as they want. Disturbing light is like bending strings in music, creating a visual dissonance. Light inhabits our mind, I try to control it." I talked about this in the soft light video, but it needs to be said again. Pay attention to the language these filmmakers use. I love it, and it's what I get a kick out of with filmmaking. It's a creative field, and even the departments you work with have a creative language that resonates through the production, and you can see the result of that in this film. The second topic I want to cover is telling a story with hard light. There's one film that fits perfectly for this that I hope you've seen, and that's the 2002 film Road to Perdition, directed by Sam Mendes and cinematography by the late Conrad L. Hall, who won an Oscar for his work. I feel like there's a handful of people that haven't seen this film that really should if you want to learn about light. This is a story that's told through not only light, but all the tools available to filmmakers. Hall really emphasizes this when he says, "The thing that makes this picture work so well is a kind of honesty. It's a sort of honest reality that doesn't try to be theatrical in any way. There is no blue moonlight, no green vistas, none of that kind of stuff. The film has very carefully crafted compositions. It's meticulously cut, and it's paced very gently and slowly, all of which is good for the story." Story. I know you've heard it before, even when creating YouTube videos, but story matters, and Hall, along with the cinematographers I talk about, understand that. What they do is driven by the story. It shapes, motivates, and influences everything they do. My goal is to make a given scene emotionally accessible for the audience. I just try to make it real. Whatever the story is trying to say to the audience dictates to me the mood I should use to reach that audience. In this movie, there are some great scenes. If you're watching it for the first time or rewatching it, just take note of what you feel and compare that to what you see when analyzing the lighting. When we talk about hard light, again, we could say that hard light is harsh. It's not flattering for the actors. We could say that, but that's not what the filmmakers said when talking about Tom Hanks. He's a very well-known actor, which could possibly hurt him in a role like this with his audience. Mendes knew that and talked about his approach to it. "I wanted them to have to fight their knowledge of him as an actor and to be drawn in on some level because they weren't being given the usual signals. So in scene after scene, Tom is either partially obscured or seen through doorways, and he disappears into shadow and then reappears. We always used wide lenses and stayed a distance from him." That's how you describe your lighting on a film. I can only assume, but I would say that description is something his crew could get behind and understand. That made a difference for me when I watched the film. It's not always something you can put your finger on. Most people are unaware of these kinds of decisions, but the impact it made in cinematography deserved its Oscar win. Next up is going to be the practical side of hard lighting. This film might sound odd considering its storyline, but let's look at the 1999 film Fight Club, directed by David Fincher and cinematography by Jeff Cronenweth. So how can we take a practical approach to lighting with a film like Fight Club that could easily go in many extreme directions? We have to start with story, and Cronenweth nails this idea as he explains his approach. The general game plan was to make sure that the actors separated from their environment, and then play the actors' edge light off of the practicals as much as possible without actually lighting them. For this film, we didn't necessarily want to be able to see directly into their faces. It was more interesting and appropriate to the story to force the audience to pay attention. If you've seen the movie, you know how much you really need to pay attention, and the lighting actually revolved around that because it was important to the story. He also says something I've mentioned before, and I'll repeat as long as I'm shooting YouTube videos. I encourage anybody shooting a movie to do as much experimentation in the tests as they are allowed. Test. No matter what YouTube videos you're watching about cameras, lenses, filters, you need to do your own tests to find out what works for you. That's filmmaking. For Fight Club, they literally played with the practical lighting on set, and it really emphasized the mystery within the film. The hard lighting with deep shadows, especially in the fight scenes, are something I can visually picture. We played with cross light, top light, side light, and up light to establish where and what practicals should be placed to bring out the textures of the environment. I'm sure we've all quoted the rules to Fight Club, but I feel the lighting played a big part to the impact of this film, or at least played a role, even if it's on a subconscious level, like making you pay attention. In the fight scenes, they had to make decisions, and Cronenweth explains this as, we also went with the idea that the fighters would play in and out of the light sources. Occasionally, they'd pop into full lighting when they were directly beneath the practical, but if they were out of the light, they were out of the light. For a wild film, a practical approach really made this film stand out, and it originated from the story itself. No matter the budget, some things just work and give you great results. The basement was also lit using clamp-on aluminum work lamps that you can buy at a hardwood store for $2. All they had to do was age the fixtures to match the scene and use 60-watt bulbs. With these examples, what can we walk away with in terms of hard lighting? Just like my video on soft lighting, we can see hard lighting is much more than a bright light casting hard shadows. All three examples picked lighting to better tell their story, even if that meant using light that wasn't what people would consider flattering. I think these cinematographers and directors really conveyed the spirit and language of filmmaking that hopefully came across in this video. Well, there you have it, hard cinematic lighting in film. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button because there's definitely more in the way. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Leave a comment if you want to continue this conversation, and until next time, it's a wrap.